This video is about academic integrity and the correct workflows to apply when you are working through your written tasks in English and also really in any subject, and I guess moving towards university study as well. So this whole video is about this idea of integrity, and integrity really is being or having, I guess, the quality to act truthfully and to act in a way where you are respecting, particularly with regards to academics, the source material that you are basing your ideas and your points on. And this is an area that really we do run into a lot of problems with, especially around assignment tasks in English. And so it's important that we have a look at a couple of different workflows that are being used, look at some good ones and then some not so good ones, or we might do it the other way around, that help to show you how you can work really responsibly with sources to make sure you don't get yourself into a situation where your academic integrity is going to be brought into question. You'll also notice here that I've used some academic integrity in the way that I've referenced this image here, saying, no, I didn't do that. That's not mine. Somebody else's, so include the source. So, a couple of things to keep in mind about academic integrity. Number one, being well informed is a good thing. So actually accessing secondary sources is in and of itself not a bad thing. It's not the wrong thing to do. We know that a critical review for a movie, there are going to be reviews out there already. We know that there are going to be feature articles about documentaries. But pretending that someone else's ideas are your own, that is not a good thing. And so we want to talk about what that means. Essentially, the rule for academic integrity works in this way. Any work or idea that is not yours must be referenced in your writing. And so simply changing the language from that secondary source material is not sufficient. Going through and right-clicking things, and don't get it in OneNote but in Word. If you right-click and look for a synonym just to change it up so it doesn't get picked up by the plagiarism software, in fact, it still does. The text around it gets picked up. And also, it's not acting out of integrity, and it means that you are taking something and you are pretending that it is yours. And so simply changing that language, it's not sufficient, and in fact it is plagiarism, and it's something that we have to deal with in really quite a serious way. So the question is, when do you reference? Well, if the writer of the initial text, and I think this is a good way to think about it, would actually recognize that what you've written is their idea or their language, you must in fact reference it. So if someone who produced a secondary source material about a film or a book or anything like that, if they picked up your work and they saw, hey, that's what I said, then that is the kind of thing you must be referencing. That also comes down to if the nature of what you're talking about is from somewhere else. So maybe it wouldn't be the language, but it would in fact be the idea. That still needs to be referenced as well. Not always in text, but you would add that to a reference list or a bibliography. So something like taking big chunks of text and just pasting it into your own work and adding a reference, that also is not appropriate. The skill that we really value in English is your ability to synthesize information, which means you bring information from a variety of places to then inform a perspective. And so being able to synthesize that information and perspectives from a wider range of areas, that is far more valued than an ability just to drop in huge chunks of text that aren't in fact your own. That doesn't bring into question academic integrity, but it does have a big impact on your ability to actually provide your own opinion, your own perspective. Really all you're doing is sort of curating material out there that isn't yours. So what do? Well, if you're in doubt, you reference it. And if you're still in doubt, ask your teacher, or you might do that the other way around. But it's really important that you have those conversations when you are working around academic integrity and make sure that you are not putting yourself in a position where you are plagiarizing another person's work. It happens all too often, and it happens often in response to students panicking and running out of time and not managing their time really well in the assignment process, where they then feel like they need to go and do these things that essentially mean that they're producing work that isn't their own for the sake of meeting a deadline or something like that. So I'm going to talk you through two workflows that we've seen students use. One of them doesn't work very well, and the other one will hopefully work much better for you. So I'll talk you through the first one. So let's say I'm doing a task. That's my little integrity picture. Let's say I'm doing a task and I'm reviewing the film version of The Great Gatsby. And I've found this article. It's from the New York Times. I know it's pretty good, and it has a perspective that's pretty similar to the one that I'm using in my article. So I'm going to write an article. It's about The Greatest Gatsby. So I'm saying that this is a really good film. And I found an article that I think has some good stuff in there. And I really like what they say about Tom Buchanan here, that he's still a bully and a bigot, spouting the popular racist pseudoscience of his day. And I'm like, yeah, actually, that sounds really, really good. And what I'm going to do is, because I want to make sure I can get this right, I'm actually going to take the screen. I'm going to snap it onto this side of the screen. Oh, let's go this one here. And then I'll get this one here. And I'm going to go back up into my article. And I'm going to have this on this side. I'm going to have my assignment over here. And I'm simply just going to type in Tom Buchanan. It's not sort of where I want it to be in the article, but I'll do it like this. Is still a, what can I say? He's still a bully and a bigot. I'm going to keep it as it is for now, and then what I'm going to do is I'm just going to press the synonym button. So popular, racist, pseudoscience, and we'll start there and we'll go from there. Right now, I've taken that from there, that secondary source, and I've copied it directly into my article, and I'm going to write some more things sort of around it, but I'm happy with that at that point. So I'm going to go in and I'm going to see if I can find some other words. Yeah, tormentor is good. He's still a tormentor. Actually, I like the word bigot, so I might leave that as it is, because even though that'll show up, I've still changed that word there. Spouting, I can change that. Synonym, let's go. Oh yeah, issuing, that's a different word. I haven't used that yet. And I'll leave racist, that's good, but pseudoscience, what can I say? No, I do like that word. Maybe I'll change popular. Yeah, let's say prevalent. So Tom Buchanan is still a tormentor and a bigot, issuing the prevalent racist pseudoscience of the day. And I'll leave that on. Instead of the day, I'll say of the 1920s, because that's different to what's in there. Now, my question to you is, with what I just did, and you're obviously not going to answer, it's rhetorical, but did I just act with academic integrity? Well, in fact, I didn't. So I've had the source over here. I didn't copy and paste it, but I've still typed it out exactly as it appears, and I've put that directly into my assignment, and I have in fact committed plagiarism there, where I've gone in and I've copied what was over here and put it into my own work, and acting like it's mine, I've just gone in and I've just gone to synonyms to try and change it up so it doesn't get picked up on the word checker. Now, I'm not going to reference that, I'm going to leave that as it is, and in fact what I'm doing there is I'm cheating, and that is not acceptable in any academic work. So that's the first workflow, and that's the workflow that tends to get people into a lot of issues. The other ones, sometimes people will just simply copy and paste what's in there, and they might drop that into their article, and then they'll go in and they'll change a couple of words again, and they'll change the font to make sure it looks all the same. That, again, is a problem. I'll show you something else that tends to work pretty poorly, is when people do something like this. They copy the whole thing, they go to their OneNote research, and they paste it in there, and they pick, yep, I like this bit here, I'm going to highlight that, and then they go back and they do the snapping thing to side there and that to there, and then again they keep typing and they copy that over. All of those workflows are not acting out of academic integrity, and so it's important that we know that that's the wrong way to work. What works better? We have the article open and we read through it, and let's say I really do like that idea, whether we talk about Tom Buchanan and some of the qualities that he demonstrates. So I've read the article and I come back and go, yep, actually I really, really like that. What I'm going to do is I'm going to keep this open as it is, but I'm going to read that little bit and go, yep, cool. So what's standing out to me here is I like this idea that he sort of represents the way people thought about minority groups at the time. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to jump over here, and I'm going to make a note that focus on Tom's values and the way he speaks about others. This reflects a dominant way of thinking in the 1920s. Now, that is something that I like from the initial text, but in fact, it's not taking the specific idea that is here, and it's not taking the language that is here. All I'm doing is saying that's something that I like in the way that they talk about Tom, but then what I'm going to do is once I get into my assignment, I'm going to say, yep, that's definitely something that I want to talk about. So I'll snap that to that side and this one over here. And so I'm going to go back to these notes that I took. I'm not going to look at the initial source, and I'm not going to print the source into there and copy from that. I'm going to write a paragraph where I'm going to talk about Tom Buchanan and the way that he reflects dominant ways of thinking at that time. I'm taking the thing that I liked from that initial text and I'm turning it into my own work. And it's now going to become something that, yes, I'm using some inspiration from that initial text, but I'm not copying what was already there. And that's a really important thing for you to understand, is that you can take things from secondary sources and you can be informed by that. But you'll say, yeah, I want to make sure I do talk about that element of Tom's character. And so what I might do is include something like a quote from Tom and then talk about how this reveals, a dominant way of thinking at the time. I'm not going to use any of the language that's in there, but I am going to take that thing where I talk about that particular piece of characterization. You'll also notice that what I'm doing here is I'm just going through and I'm just collecting ideas. I'm collecting things that seem really interesting to me. I'm not using this as a chance to copy and paste things into these boxes, and I'm not using this as a chance to just copy their whole perspective. But I'm saying, yes, that's a part of the film that I think would be worthwhile talking about. Yes, that's something that I think I could use in my own perspective. Now, let's say I really do like that idea of the racist pseudoscience of his day. Well, how do I actually do that? Well, I can go back here and I can say, yeah, I really liked that idea of the racist pseudoscience. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to make sure that when I do this, I'm going to copy the link to that initial source. I'm going to put that in here, and I'm going to put down who wrote it as well. So this was by A.O. Scott, and I think the year was 2013. Is that correct? Yep. And how I could actually then use that in my material. Sorry about whatever noise that is. So in his New York Times review of the film, A.O. Scott highlights Buchanan's powerful characterization in the way that he pushes the racist pseudoscience, and you can see what I'm going to go and do there, and to include that in my quote. And then depending on the referencing style that I'm using, I might actually use some footnotes where I reference it that way, and then I have my footnote list at the end, or it could just be that I'm going to give an in-text reference like this, and I'll have a reference list at the end. Both of those workflows can work, but the big rule to come back to is you've got to think about, if it is not yours, it must be referenced in your writing. And thinking about those workflows that I just showed you, trying to apply the best of those to make sure that you are acting out of academic integrity, that's the best way for you to work.